Okay, welcome everybody. I'm David Arnosti. I'm broadcasting from the basement in East Lansing for Solarize Meridian. And we're doing a talk today about the Solarize project and homeowner solar systems. I can give you some of our own experiences and how Solarize Meridian project is working to help people who are thinking that they might want to put in home solar, do it in a cost-effective way. So I am going to screen share and let's get started. Okay, let's see. Now I need to screen share the right thing. Just a moment. Here we go. So we live on Blythefield Drive. This is in Heritage Hills near the Donley School in East Lansing. Postal address, we're Meridian Township and East Lansing School. So we're right on the border. And what I hope to do today is to say a few words about what is Solarize Meridian, some solar energy facts for homeowners, ideas to help you decide whether solar is something for me, and some larger perspectives, and then introduce one solar contractor from a local installer, Pete Morgan, who's joining us, and to explain how groups can join together to get a bulk buy discount and answer any questions. So my daytime job is I'm a biochemist at Michigan State University. And my solar activities include being part of the green team at our church in Hazlitt. We did a solar project there. And I'm also a board member of a nonprofit in Michigan called Michigan Interfaith Power and Light that helps houses of faith to do energy efficiency and promote conservation and climate justice. Our house has a 4.4 kilowatt solar array on the west side of the garage. If you go to Google Street View, you can see the solar panels. We've had it up since 2010. It's been generating since early 2011. And these blue mountains at the bottom indicate the annual use or the annual electricity that is produced by the panels. Overall, in the last 11 years, it's made the equivalent of about 9 years worth of electricity. So it's covering most of our electricity, excess in the summer and then not so much in the winter. So all of the systems that we're considering are so-called grid tied. The solar panels on your roof make electricity. That's direct current electricity that's converted to AC so your home can use it. Anything that's extra goes back into the grid. That's what the grid tied part means, and flows over to your neighbor's house, and then the utility sells it to your neighbor. So that's their business model. So for the simplest kind of system, grid tied is what we do. I'm not going to talk about batteries today. Some people have them. It's an extra expense. That's something people can look into, but for the most part, most homeowners are using a simple grid-tied system where surplus goes back and is used in your neighbor's toaster or whatever. So the Solarize Meridian initiative has had a number of meetings so far. There's a web page at the bottom with a lot of information, and to facilitate people's catching all of these URLs, I put them in the chat. So if you wanted to, you can also just Google Solarize Meridian and you'll find this web page that has resources, frequently asked questions, and so forth. So it's modeled on other solarized initiatives. There has been one in Ann Arbor that's run for a couple of years. It's essentially a community bulk buy solar program where friends and neighbors get together and purchase their systems more or less in a coordinated fashion and get a price break on that. And it also is a great opportunity for people to share knowledge and experience and get your questions answered from people who are either at the same point or have just done what you're thinking about. So many of us have been following the climate news. The recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report from this year pointed out that a lot of speculation from the last report 4 years ago has now been completely confirmed, and things like those torrential rains we had last summer in Michigan are going to be a standard part of our climate going forward, and more so. So, well, it's kind of the climate scientists, I told you so, but it really is a conundrum and a challenge for everybody. Well, how do you respond to that? So I'm not a doctor, I'm a biochemist, but sometimes I read the medical literature, and the pediatricians are saying, we're seeing a lot of kids with mental health issues relating to their future, climate anxiety. And the pediatricians were saying the medical community needs to get engaged because their clients, their patients are directly impacted. And I think that you could change medical community to almost any other word: teachers or homeowners or parents or grandparents. Anybody should be engaged. And at a larger scale, of course, there's this issue of climate injustice, that things that are changing because of fossil fuel burning are going to impact the lowest income communities hardest. And it's not just poor communities in the Detroit area that had all their basements flooded. It's whole regions of the world where they are going to lose the ability to do agriculture and so forth. So there are a lot of reasons why you might be concerned. So I think that what I'd like to communicate is that the topic that we're discussing today, it's a matter of individuals can do something and communities can do something and you can do something, and it's it kind of builds on itself. So why can individuals do something? A lot of it is because there's a technological solution for a lot of these problems. Renewable energy costs have gone down so fast in the last decade or so that it's now cheaper to build new renewable than to build new nuclear, coal, or gas. And in fact, almost all of the new commercial level, like utility scale installations last year were renewables. Coal is being retired, nuclear, some of that is being retired, and wind and solar are the primary renewables. It's gotten way cheaper. At the same time, the cost of generating power the way we've been doing it has gone up and up, which of course is forcing inflation. And it also makes it more attractive economically to shift to a renewable system. So as I was relating before we got started, I've been in Michigan since 1996, and I noticed that we had a lot of clouds here. And I'd never really thought that, like, solar really in Michigan, is that practical? This is a map showing how much sunshine falls on a square meter in the continental US. And you can see New Mexico, Arizona, California have some real very sunny spots. Michigan, not so much. We're in the lightest color. It comes out for the engineers out there about 1,500 kilowatt hours per square meter. And that's about enough to run our house for 3 months if it were, converted to power. So it's less than some places, but on the other hand, because Michigan's in the north, we have most of our sun production in the summertime. And that's important because the biggest electrical loads that the utilities grapple with are in the summer when everybody's cranking their air conditioner. So we actually make most of our solar exactly when we need to. Other advantages to Michigan are the self-washing solar panels. We never have to worry about them getting dusty. You don't have to do anything to them. And they actually work more efficiently when they're not being baked as in the desert. So there are a couple of pluses. Another way to think about this is Michigan's amount of sunshine, and it doesn't have to be direct sunshine, it can be partly cloudy, is about 50% more than the most solarized country in the world, which is Germany. So the red arrow shows Germany. They have about 1,000 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. And they also have lots of solar panels on their houses. So the little insert here shows last week's electricity in Germany. That banana sticking out of the banana split, that's the solar electric, like the May 30th and 31st. And that's a lot of the electricity that they're generating from solar panels in not such a sunny country. So they can do it, it can be done. The costs have come down so much so that it's economically reasonable. Another reason to think about putting it on your roof is because although there are large scale projects, here's two of consumers, industrial scale. If you're part of their green energy initiative, paying a little more on your bill, you might have bought one of these as a fractional owner. But these eat up a lot of land. And if you put solar panels on your roof, well, that's already built. It's not somebody's agricultural land. It's also closer to where you need it. So there's some efficiencies there that the electricity only has to go a few feet and then it's in your refrigerator. So just a couple of facts about our system. It's 18 panels made by Sharp. These are standard technology, although the efficiencies have gotten much better in the last decade. It produced about 80% of our electricity. So the numbers on this, I paid $8 a watt to put this in. So that was like the upfront cost. We did have to put in new shingles. There were some things going on, but current projects are about $3 a watt. So the costs of installing, most of that's because the solar panels have gotten far cheaper. The system produces electricity also on cloudy days. So it just has to be light outside and then the thing turns on. You can see the week that I've shown in this panel where there's some very sunny days and there's some days where there was clouds. And that can be kind of addictive. There's an app you can go on and look at your system to see how each of the panels is working. And in thinking about your own experience or your own setting, does it make sense for your home? So certainly I would say for economic reasons, there's some things to attend first. It's much cheaper to save energy than it is to make it, even with renewable. So if you have an uninsulated attic or leaks in the walls or very old appliances, it's cheaper actually to replace those and use less power before you consider going for photovoltaics to make renewable energy. And there are programs that there are various incentives, like Consumers Energy will give $50 for your old operating refrigerator so you can put it in. There are a lot of reasons to upgrade to be more efficient. Another thing to think about is I just took a snapshot in our neighborhood. Is your house extremely shady? Then it's not going to work. But looking at Google Maps, in our neighborhood at least, there are a lot of houses with only minimal shading. So they could consider that. So another question I would ask is, how much electricity do you use? You can do this on your own. You don't have to rely on a contractor to tell you that. I think most of our attendees or people watching the recording are on Consumers Energy. So you can go to your online bill if you have it set up that way. Here's our July bill or June bill. It looks like $6.43. And click on the energy dashboard. And then from there, you can actually look at your electricity usage. Here, I've just selected for the whole year. And it tells you how much electricity used every month. And we use about 5,000 kilowatt hours. That is important to know because it'll tell you, well, if I want to make 100% of my electricity off the rooftop, how big should it be? How much electricity am I using? A friend of mine recently was looking at putting in panels, and I said, wow, that's a lot of panels. How much electricity do you use? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, can I see your bill from, in this case, it was Detroit Energy, DTE, Detroit Edison. And it turns out they have a really old electric water heater that is just a monster that is using as much electricity as our whole house. It's absurd. And in fact, I think it's like 30 years old. they could replace that and drop their electrical usage by 30% or something like that, and then they could put in solar panels that would cover the rest. So it does really make sense to take a look and see what is your usage. Are there any obvious quirks or funny things going on? Also, it'll sound very impressive if you talk kilowatt hours to your installer instead of just how much do you pay per month for your bill. They're always impressed. Okay, another thing that you can do by yourself is just go to this National Renewable Energy Lab site on the web. It's called PV Watts. PV Watts. It's part of the Department of Energy. And go to the website and type in your address. Here I typed in our address in East Lansing. And then you can go to customize your system. It'll show your house, Google map view from the air. And in this case, I said, well, what if we put some solar panels here on the east roof where there are no panels right now? I just drew a box. And it said, okay, if you do that, it's about this size, and given the way it's facing and what the slope is, they came up with an estimate of how much you would produce from a system of that size. And this is sort of a ballpark figure, but it's a good way to start. And it'll tell you, you don't need to have a south-facing roof. You can have an east or west-facing roof. You don't want to have a north-facing roof, but a flat roof also will work to harvest a reasonable amount of electricity. So that's stuff you can do on your own that's interesting and sometimes eye-opening. So why go solar? It's good for you. It's good for the planet. And according to John Sarver, systems put in these days with the current tax structure should pay off in about 10 years. But the systems are built to last for some 25 years. So after it's paid off, then you give free electricity, essentially. There's very little maintenance. I think the main thing at some point during the lifetime, the inverter will be replaced, but the panels themselves have very long life. It adds value to the home. Realtors are increasingly able to capture that as part of a green home. It doesn't change your property taxes. There was a whole big battle in the Michigan legislature. A guy in Ann Arbor who got socked by Ann Arbor finally got a bill through, and now they agree you don't have to raise your property taxes. There's really no maintenance. And for the Solarize project, the way this works is parts of the group who agree to be part of this group, and that could be those here today and those people who are busy but said, please send me the recording because I want to know what's going on. The way that Solarize Meridian set it up is for every person who decides to put in a system going with the installer, and that would be absolute in this case, then everybody would get an additional 1% discount. So if there are a total of 8, everybody would get an 8% discount over the sticker price, maximum 15% discount. Now that's in addition to getting a 26% federal tax credit. So let's just talk about that. First, a couple of words about the way that bills work. So currently, Consumers Energy, which is our provider in most cases here, I think, and also DTE, use a so-called distributed generation tariff. And that is, if you have excess energy that you send back to the grid, the utility will take it and sell it to your neighbor at 15 cents a kilowatt hour, more or less. And they will pay you 7 cents. So they get the difference. They don't have to do the generation. They just keep track of the electrons. And they say that's because it's the bother of running the system. But note that when people are using home solar, they're actually cutting off the peak during the hottest summertime, the longest days when people are running their air conditioners. So we're doing a great service to Consumers Energy by making the grid more stable. So they should reward us better, give us a medal. But they give you 7 cents a kilowatt hour. That's kind of factored into the thinking right now. It used to be net metering where the meter would just go backwards and they would pay you 15 cents instead of 7 cents. For systems then that people put in, you'll generally be making excess energy in the summertime. In the winter, you'll be making very little. The days are short. There might be snow on them. And overall, it balances out. You want to put in a system that's not more than 100% of what your annual usage is. So currently, we use about 5,000. So we wouldn't want to have more panels than would make about 5,000 in the course of a year. Otherwise, the utility will say you can't hook up to our grid. You can have batteries and be off in the woods on your own, but you can't hook up to our grid that way. So the tax credits are not a deduction, it's a tax credit, which is better than a deduction. For systems that are placed in service in 2022, it's 26%, 22% next year, and then there's nothing in 2024 unless something happens. So for instance, if you installed a $10,000 system in 2022, next year when you do your taxes, like spring of 23, you would calculate 26% or $2,600 and remove that from your taxes. So you would save $2,600, you'd reduce your tax bill $2,600, so your net cost would be $7,400. And likewise, so if you spent twice as much, then it would be $5,200 and so forth. That's how the tax credit works. I have to say that in terms of how long does it take to put up a system, once you're in line, actually the installation goes pretty rapidly. There has to be electrical work done. They need to put mounting brackets on the roof, which they don't need to go inside your home for that. And then the panels clip on and the whole thing, well, I think the most recent project that I was aware of, it just took 2 or 3 days. So it's not that they're pouring tons of concrete or something like that. So financing, and I'm not an expert on this, and I don't feel comfortable telling anybody to borrow money, but the economists say that actually taking out a home improvement loan or something like that, it would pay off. There's also something called Michigan Saves, which has pre-approved lenders. And I think that the Michigan State University Credit Union also works with contractors, and they have very attractive rates. So how to select an installer. For this program, you get 3 proposals. I mean, if you want, I recommend getting 3 proposals. There is a list of contractors, and I'll emphasize that you can go to who've agreed to work with the program, but you can get proposals from anybody. Ask for references, compare how much you're paying per watt. It's going to be about $3 or so per watt. So for a 4,000 watt system, that would be 12,000. And that cost would be before the tax credit is taken off. You want to have the upfront cost, not the net. And then consider the cost, experience, warranties, and responsiveness. So if you go to this Meridian Township Solarize Meridian site, there's a bar that says solar installers, and then links to 5 contractors who are interested in being part of the Solarize Meridian project. You can get quotes from them. And here's an example. The photograph is, I don't know where the photograph is from. That just shows you what solar panels look like on somebody's roof. But for instance, solar panels made in Canada or the US, which is a product being installed by Absolute. These are, each panel is a 400 watt capacity, 20% efficient. They have 72 of those little circles of silicon in each panel, black frames and cells with a racking that is attached to your roof using metal pieces from a main company, Iron Ridge. And then the electricity is changed from DC to AC using a solar edge inverter, which also comes with this online app, so you can watch the whole thing in real time on your cell phone. So this was the pricing that was agreed to at the beginning of the Solarize project for projects that are like between 5 to 10 kilowatts. That would be a pretty average one. It's $3 per watt. And then if we have 5 people in a group saying, I want to do it, then it would be 5% less than that. Or 10 people, it would be 10% less than that. And then there are just some examples of the pricing for 8 and 12. 12 kilowatt would be a rather large house. I think our whole church has 20 kilowatts, and that's like 2/3 of its electricity. So I think that depending on your electricity use and how much you want to produce and how much money you have available and so forth, it's going to be less than 10 kilowatts for most people. So the plan for Solarize is within the next week, decide if you even want to get some quotes. So it's just like no commitment, no money. Just think about it. Is this worth pursuing? If you look at your house and it's completely shaded by tall oaks, then you can decide that that's not really for me. But if you have a potential for solar, then why not get some quotes? So it'll probably take several weeks for people to get back and to look and to come up with a proposal. But once you do have all of your quotes, then our plan is for people to think about that for 2 weeks and decide, is this something they want to go ahead with as a group or not? And I think, Pete, I put this in without consulting you, but I think the idea is for this group that by sometime in July, we could say, all right, here's a group of people who've decided to move ahead, and here's the pricing, and are we going to work with Absolute or other ones, so that you would have enough time to get them in within the 2022 tax year. Is that a reasonable timeline? You said last time I spoke to you that you guys are already scheduling into August.
Yeah, we're into September now.
You're into September. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I agree with what you have said. So the timeline is, if you can either let David or I know within a week if you would like a free site visit, in which we'll come out and we'll talk about some of the solar possibilities for your house. And then from the end of that week, we have 2 weeks to schedule, or from that to get a proposal to you. And then we set a deadline, which is 2 weeks after the last proposal was sent out, which will be on the proposal, to compare, to look at it, to ask questions, to figure out, is this right for you? And do you want to buy into the group discount, whatever that may be?
Yeah. And as far as the group, we're not requiring that people be like next door neighbors. It's more or less ended up as within Meridian Township area or not too far out. So that it's easier to do permitting as one batch or something like that. Let's see. Oh, I did want to say, I was asked, was I going to recommend an installer? And I said, well, I'm familiar with Absolute Solar and I'm comfortable recommending them because of the work that they've done in the area and a lot of satisfied customers. Most recently, early this spring, we dedicated a community 13 kilowatt system at Southside Community Coalition that Absolute installed for us. That was part of a project to support this community center in South Lansing that does a lot of social services, and now they have free electricity and first solar project in that part of Lansing. Also did projects like University Lutheran and Islamic Center on the left-hand side near the campus, as well as installations for Meridian Township on some of the township building roofs. They've done a number of larger scale, but they've done a lot of homes as well. So that was where I was, that's why I was confident saying that if you want to work with Absolute Solar, you'll find that they're local and they're competitive and they're experienced. Do I have any questions? Anybody is free to unmute and ask a question. Brian, I think you looked like you were, but you're muted.
Oh, sorry. No, my wife and I were just running through the numbers and seeing what questions we had. Sorry.
Oh, service.
Oh, in terms of service, so obviously damages and things like that are homeowners insurance, but does the company that install also the one we call when there's an issue?
So Pete, do you want to tackle that one?
Can you repeat that question just so?
Or servicing, what happens if something
service.
goes wrong?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we are a local company. Our service warranty is for 3 years. So if anything goes wrong within the first 3 years after your installation, we come out at no charge. The warranties on pretty much all of the products are 25 years, panels, optimizers. The one thing that's a little bit short of that on a SolarEdge system, which is what we will use as our jumping off point, is the central inverter. That's 12 years, but that warranty can be extended to 25. After 3 years, then it's just a service fee, the same thing you would get if you had to have somebody come out and work on your refrigerator. And that all the numbers on that will be in the proposal that we send to you if you request one.
So I can also address that. So we put microinverters in 10 years ago when they were brand new, and Enphase, which makes them, I had guaranteed those. And we've had several fail. They replaced them under warranty, and I used services from Sumter Solar, which is a solar service and installing company, and they came out and took care of it, lifted up the panel and put a new inverter on. The hardware is actually much better now. So the optimizers that they use on the back of the panels and the centralized inverters. So for instance, the 20 kilowatt system that we had installed in 2017, we've had zero problems, really nothing that we needed to do. So the standard photovoltaic technology is now pretty much off the shelf. So we're not talking about like experimental technology. It's not like the very first Tesla or something. I think it's different with batteries, at least from what I understand, that if you have batteries, it just makes things much more complicated. So that's another world. But grid-tied photovoltaic panels on a roof, there are no moving parts, and it's super hard glass, so they can take hailstones and things like that. So I am going to ask a question of our attendees. Do you guys have any neighbors who have, or friends who've put in solar panels? I don't see any pluses. There are definitely, since I've been talking about them, I would say in the last 5 years, I'm aware of a couple of dozen people in my wider circle who've decided to do this. And I think that that's another reason to really promote Solarize Meridian, is because last year, the amount of solar that went into rooftops is the equivalent of several large like coal-fired generating stations, like 4 gigawatts. That's how much rooftop solar went in. And there are a lot of roofs. Think about all the big box stores. There's a tremendous opportunity. And I think that part of the challenge is not so much the technology, but the way people think about it, that if your neighbor's got one and it works, suddenly it becomes much more real and tangible. And I think that, how much, at what point would we say, well, Michigan's got enough? I'm not sure, but right now the amount of rooftop solar is still very low compared to the potential. So I think that being a local advertisement is something that we can really promote. So who has seen the solar panels at the corner of Marsh and Central Park? It's near the Target over in Okemos. I remember when the township was discussing, that was the first solar array I think that they put in, and they were discussing where should we put this in, like on top of the fire station. And somebody said, well, let's put it right where everybody drives by it as an advertisement. And that's why they put it in that it wasn't, that property wasn't used for anything. But I think that's why they started there. The rest of the solar for the township has gone up on the roof, so you don't see it unless you're following it on the website.
Well, you can see the ones on the South Fire Station if you're driving the right direction. And then the ones at the farmer's market you can see from street level. The ones on the municipal building are a little bit harder to see. Yeah, they need a drone to get up and see that one.
Yep, yep.
I think
So
the one other thing that I would like to kind of promote as we move into the finding out if you want a quote and what's the final price going to be. One of the things that the Absolute Solar and the Meridian Energy team have done just to incentivize and thank the people who have participated in this program is to give a baseline 3% discount on so if only one person signs up from this group, we will get a 3% discount, which to say thank you, to try and promote Meridian Township's energy goals and move forward with that. And it's, the first group was a little bit smaller, but they got the 3% discount. The last group we just finalized this week, they got a 7% discount. And the third group, their proposals are all out right now. We've had one sign. There's a lot of people considering it. So there is the unknown with that, but baseline is 3% if you sign with us through the Solarize program.
Yeah, that's great. So what I propose is that I would, the recordings from the other ones, have those already been posted? I'm not sure where the recorded ones went.
They were recorded. I don't know where they were posted, if it's on YouTube, if it's on the GLREA channel. We'd have to ask John Sarver about that.
Yeah, I'll find out where the recording is posted so that those people, I think there were another 6 who said yes, interested, they're able to view it, and also a link to the contractors who are interested in working with it, including Absolute Solar and the other ones, the other 4 contractors whom you could turn to for a quote if you want to go ahead on that. And then we'll just check back and see if people have questions. Anybody interested in an open house today? So I did indicate in my flyer that if the weather was permitting, if it wasn't raining, we're in East Lansing. I don't know where you guys are. But you're more than welcome. If anybody's interested, let me know. Otherwise, we'll be seeing you on Zoom or by email, right?
And I think the one more thing that I would say, again, just John or David has mentioned several times about the idea that Michigan isn't ideal for solar. Even in this day has gotten cloudier. I have panels at my house. They're still producing, even in this amount of sun. Not as much as earlier when we had some sunny sometimes, or yesterday, which is a beautiful day. But even in weather like this, it still will produce, and at the very least supplement the energy that is being used in your house first.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank Susan, Jason, Brian, and also Pete for joining us today live. It's always good to have a live audience. I can tell you've had too many Zooms where I didn't know if people were there or not. And we'll make the recording available. I will welcome any other questions if you've got them, and hope to see you soon in Solarize land. Thanks all.